Hey y'all, it is I, Alyssa. I also go by Lyss or Alsira, whichever is okay. This video, I will be talking about my other projects. I already have 2 videos concerning my debut novel in progress, Hollow River, and my 3rd poetry book, PB3. Those will be linked down below in the description. Before I go any further, I want to issue an apology. I know I don't have to do this, and I already explained my reason in the community tab, but I did not intend to have just one upload for February, and I also did not intend for that video to occur just before that band's new era unfolded. The reason why I didn't upload in a while was due to the fact that I was sick and dealing with a cough and phlegm. Now that I'm better, we're right back on schedule. I already published a Substack article regarding this video, but it didn't go into depth, so that'll be a Substack note. Now for my little ones. A little intro about me. Like I said before, I'm Alyssa. I'm a 27-year-old indie writer and digital artist from New York, born and raised. I have self-published 2 poetry books, Kaleidoscope and Death Rose, both available via Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I have a bachelor's in arts in English, concentrated in creative writing, with a minor in film video studies. I also have an MFA in creative writing. Despite these accolades, I am not an expert in the English language, English literature, the craft of writing, nor the craft of film and video productions. With that being said, let's find out what I'm working on. Riley Siders. This is a series I'm working on. I'm currently working on book 1 and book 2 is still being plotted out. I have ideas for book 3 and 4, but I don't know until we get there. From what I recall, this was inspired by anime that I was watching as a teenager and most recently Jack Reacher, and I just really kind of combined the two. This series is about a young man in Riley Sanders. He's not big and buff like Jack Reacher. He's just your thin, white boy from the Catskills of New York. He was found as an orphan there, actually. After an incident that resulted in the orphanage burning down, as several people did, Riley was sent to a vocational school. At the age of 18, he graduates somehow and lives on his own. In book 1, Riley arrives in a small town in Pennsylvania and is arrested on suspicion of arson and endangering wildlife. There he learns that the deputy's daughter has been missing for a month, and she's not even allowed to investigate her own daughter's disappearance. Riley has special senses and abilities, some that he discovered in childhood. He is clear of suspicion, and he asks if he can help in the effort as a fire expert. Our deputy is hesitant, but after a few breakthroughs, she starts to trust him. One night, she is held hostage and tries to fight off her attackers. Just when she's about to die so early in the book, our boy Riley comes to save the day, and our deputy learns his secret. He has fire powers. I'll stop right there. But pretty much what I said was about the first 20 pages of the book. I'm a little over 200 pages in. A lot of shit happens. I don't know if and when this book will be published, but we'll get there when we get there. I will say this series is part of a shared universe with Hollow River, so whatever the future holds, you may see some Easter eggs. They'll be there. Metalcore band sitcom. Besides novels and poetry, I also dabble in screenwriting. In fact, a lot of my novel ideas start off as short dialogues. Oftentimes, they are reenactments of my favorite shows, imposed by original characters. I don't have a definitive title for this one. Just MBS. Sounds like a baseball channel, but I promise you it's just not. This sitcom, which episode 1, first draft is done. It was inspired by my favorite shows like Will and Grace, The Golden Girls, Frasier, Night Court. Some oldies in there. Besides sitcoms, I'm also a metalhead, and metalcore has always been seen as like a serious genre, especially when you got photos like these and music videos like these. You should see the behind the scenes and vlogs. Hella different. We follow an eccentric guitarist named Remy, who reunites with his old high school classmate Elise, and recruits her into his band. Elise is a poet and is working on her novel. Sensing any similarities? We also have Colin, Remy's bandmate who's a bassist, and Clarice, Elise's friend, who plays the drums. I'm not one to write a romance. My poetry speaks different, but that's a different genre. I've always been put off by a romantic subplot because it eventually takes over the entire plot. Kurt Vonnegut said something about that. However, when I was playing out MBS, I thought about this show I watched called Mike and Molly. It's about 2 people who are obese and fall in love with each other. It's one of the funniest shows I ever watched, and I would like more. The end goal for season 1 would be Remy and Lyss becoming a couple. Now, Elise has a rule, and that is there's no dating with her bandmates or anything like that. So this kind of breaks the rule for her, but we'll see what happens. We also have Colin, who finds himself at odds with Lyss due to her education and talent. Colin's the lyricist, so when he sees a woman whose talents competes with his, he gets a bit defensive. Clarice is one of those quiet people you should look out for because she has a lot to say. We also have 4 other characters like former drummer Dan and bartender Marcy, and those two really help balance out the ratio in the comedy. There is a character inspired by another character in a show called Frasier, and this character is also an agent. Her name is Tabitha, and we don't really see her until like much later in the season. And Tabitha was inspired by BB Frasier in the show Frasier. No, BB Glazer in the show. Oh my gosh! But yeah, she's not as cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs like BB is, but she is someone you should look out for. This sitcom is really a relief for me. I don't see much of a future with this, especially with a self-insert. I've never been in the band, although I may end up starting one. Who knows? Please hire me. Cabin Throat Doctor, short story collection. This came from a dream and posed with a band I was listening to. This is more of a horror thriller kind of thing, with a little supernatural element in there. I didn't have much to go on, so I self-inserted myself. We start with frustrated vocalist Tristan, who is struggling to write a new album. His friend Eli invites him to a cabin in upstate New York. Tristan's girlfriend Nadine is very much against this and says, "Hey, you only know this guy for like a year. Why are you taking this opportunity?" Tristan is at his wit's end. He goes ahead, heads up to the cabin with his newest friend. At the cabin, Tristan starts to uncover certain things about Eli and the cabin. Meanwhile, Nadine and Lyss work to solve the disappearance of a promising rock star from 1982. And by the way, do you know 1982 was 44 years ago? That's crazy. That's as far as I'll go for this, but it did get me thinking. Short story collection? I am reading an ARC, or Advanced Reader's Copy, that is a short story collection. I'm just amazed and flustered how fast the story goes in less than 20 pages. I'm like, can I even do that without missing anything? I guess we'll know when the time comes, right? I don't know what will be the start of a short story collection, if I even go through with it. I am working on the first edition of it. I have a lot of stories that are on the back burner. I got a lot of back burners. I'm never just working on one project. I'm usually working on maybe 2 or 3. It's been like this since I was a teenager. Before I move on to updates on Hello River and Poetry Book 3, let me chat a little more about the 3 I've just mentioned. I talked about this in my Hello River video, and this has stayed with me for all my characters and projects. I always add a little part of myself in my characters, not just so I can relate to them or write the story better, but as a way to reach out to my audience. I've done this with my poetry in previous books, but through fiction it takes a different approach because I'm developing a character and a world and writing out their experiences in a more thorough way. For Riley Sathers, he has severe childhood trauma and he's bisexual, as am I. He is a human man with superpowers. Actually, let me correct myself. I should say, well, I don't want to spoil it, but he's actually not from Earth, so he is an alien, per se. But we don't really find that out in the first book. It is speculated that he's not a citizen of Earth. So we're getting a little bit into, like, Superman territory, but kind of, like, subverting it in a little way. Making our world a little more human, not always the confident beacon of hope and everything. His powers are a way of expressing himself and his trauma. In fact, it was a traumatic moment in his life that brought out the height of his power at the young age of 7. It also goes into depth about sexual assault and the effects of trauma. Metalcore band sitcom also has similar things. It's not fantasy, but it does cover sexuality, masculinity, femininity, especially in men and metal scene, misogyny in metal scene, autism, disabilities, and religion. Lots of religion. Remy is Catholic. I read the Bible, I attended Catholic school for 1 year, which I would like to forget. And I was raised by a Muslim mom and Hindu father. I'm an atheist now. Clarice is Jewish and her family is conservative, but she is not. We also have difficult family dynamics and tough decisions to make. Plus, it's a way to write out my fantasies and obsessions. I don't have much for cabin throat doctor, which is spur of the moment. Well, enough about that. Let's dive back into Hollow River and Poetry Book 3. I'm just amazed with how far I'm getting into this novel. It's been a long-ass road. We started off in Boston and we're probably halfway through Wyoming. In other words, I'm 88% through with the first draft. We met the Elegumens. You'll learn more about them later on in life. I have a temp title cover and I'm pondering that maybe, just maybe, considering how long this first draft is, it may be split up into 2 books. Duology maybe? Trilogy? I'll have to see how this will go into rewrites. Right now, I'm just focusing on finishing the first draft. Funny thing is, every time I talk about this on Threads, there's always an account saying, "Oh, what are you going to do after you're done with the first draft? Beta readers? Do you need a book designer? Babe, I see you." This is why my public Instagram has limited comments. When I'm done with my first draft, there will be a video on that. I'm in the final few chapters of Hollow River, and I cannot believe I'm saying that. The reason why I say this is because I usually don't finish what I start, so this means a lot to me. As I'm getting to the finish line, I'm also thinking about where my character's journeys will lead off. Like I said, this is a shared universe, so other books that I'm writing will be involved in some way. There will be books that predate the events of Hollow River, and there's already enough in Hollow River for some characters like Ophelia, Melody, and Wilma. I see it more as how a video game has options of a certain path to take. For instance, the game Shadow the Hedgehog. So many paths to choose from, but they all lead to one final ending. Alana, the central main character, will take more of a difficult adventure later on, and her powers will be so great that it becomes a threat to the universe itself. We also get kind of meta. PB3, so I am about 50 poems through this one. The original script is 40, it is 50. I counted. I've never written that much for a poetry book. Kaleidoscope and Death Row is about the same page length, just over 100 pages. PB3, almost 150. That's novella length. The main concern should not be the page length, though. It should be finishing the first draft, and though I do have completed first drafts of poems here, I do have others that have yet to be finished. I have some sections labeled, but topics do overlap, and I have to figure out which sections to keep and which not to keep, or if I'm even doing sections at all. I talked about this in this video of its own. I'm still working on PB3, and I'm starting to notice a pattern of poems I'm writing and giving an idea for another poetry book. PB4. So I don't have it solidified yet. I don't even know if it will be in its own book or if it'll say a section in PB3. If you recall, Death Rose was originally its own poem in Kaleidoscope before I decided it should be its own book. I do have a working title for this section/book idea. The Devoted and the Beloved. It's a take on religion, not just on Christianity, but other religions as well, like Hinduism, Islam, paganism. If you didn't know, raised by Muslim mom, Hindu father. I'm not religious anymore. I stepped away since the age of 18. Still live with my parents, the heretic that I am. Religion and mythology have been topics that interest me, and I know a good deal about Hindu mythology, especially considering that it possibly inspired Greek mythology. Hinduism is the oldest recorded religion in the world and has a great influence on my family, including myself, as my middle name is Sita. She's a Hindu goddess known for her role in the legend Ramayana. I'll attach a Wikipedia link down below so you all can read it. There are several versions of it throughout history, and there are film and TV adaptations. It's not a Hindu temple if there wasn't a kids' theater version of it played in that very temple. I was also Muslim, and there are big comparisons between Islam and Christianity. The latter worshippers really do not like to hear that. Quite ironic in this current climate. Do you know that Jesus Christ was mentioned more times in the Quran than in the Bible? In Islam, we recognize Christ as a prophet, not the Son of God, and he died on the cross, being airlifted by angels. I remember my parents were blessing the house, and we had Imam read, and Imam is like an Islamic priest. we had our neighbors over, including our Roman Catholic neighbors. They were an elderly couple. So the email was talking about Christ and how he died and now resurrected. And my neighbor left. My mom went to see how he was, he said. And he said, no man's going to tell me what happened to Christ. Well, it ain't the Bible we're reading from. Anecdote over. Poems for this section have been a bit gory. I mentioned this in an old video of mine where I talk about kaleidoscope. A lot of my poems start off as songs, broken songs rather, and in PB3 there was one poem I wrote in my mind. It was very folksy, moody-like, and then the final verse is just explosion, just explosive, screeching pain. It follows the speaker devoting himself to this garden of statues, and even performing blood oaths. When everyone, family and friends have left them, the speaker prays to God, whoever's in the garden, and they notice something strange. Their hands are turning into the same material as the statues. Not only will be deep in religious deconstruction, mania, mythological retellings, but there will also be spirituality here and there. There may be some tarot involved too. Something to note is that this section is not anti-religion or anti-Christian. It is not meant to deter you from your religious belief. I must point that out because there are some attitudes that may seem to go in that direction, but I promise you, I don't hate you for being religious. This section is still a budding idea. I do not know what will come out of it. I will let you know in the foreseeable future. Back to PB3. So for the third poetry book, I want to do something a little different than the previous two books. Everything is still in first draft mode. I was thinking starting off this poetic era with symbols, and those symbols will represent sections in the book. I won't say much on the symbols. I want to keep it as cryptic as possible. I have read a few poems in the collection so far in my last video about this. As you can tell, I'm diving into different topics such as roadway metaphors, love, existentialism, just to name a few. If you're interested, I will link an inspiration playlist for PB3. It may have people you know, it may not. We all have open minds and open ears. Before we move on to this section, I do want to say this. Since I'm going to put the traditional publishing route with Hollow River, it's going to take time with that, as I'll have to work on a larger manuscript, then work on creating agents, and agents will have to create publishing houses, and I don't know how long that'll be. That being said, I had the original idea of 2 poetry books, then a novel, and then a third poetry book. That was the original idea from like 2 years ago. How naive was I? To fill in the space for HR's arrival, PB3 may be the next publication and it will be self-published. I'm getting a little excited. Other ventures. I mentioned writing songs. I have sung before, but that was back in high school. I do have interest in singing covers here. I just don't know when, but foreseeable future. And also planning on singing my own poems. So there'll be like, I wouldn't say like songs per se, but because they don't take the traditional song route with like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, whatever. It's more of just singing poetry as a performance. Also a digital artist, and I'm working on designs for maybe merch or tarot cards. Don't know when that'll be, but it will be. That's all I have for this video. If you reached this far, please comment a writing emoji. It could be a notebook, utensil, whatever relates. If there was a topic you would like me to talk about, please comment down below. I do reserve the right now to talk about a topic. Please support me any way you can. My link tree is down below, and that is where you'll find my books. Every purchase counts. You can also commission me via Ko-Fi. I will be making monthly updates on my projects on Substack. There is a paid option, but these articles will be free. I'm also selling books that I've read on Pango Books, and that's attached to my link tree down below. Make sure you hydrate and be safe. Bye!